So you allude to an interesting topic, and that's the one that ensues the couple weeks prior to the selection committee's final decision, and then after the result, is that how do you weigh these teams, and what's your mode of operation in terms of metrics? So it came down to me. I did a video where I posted, if you looked at it this way, you'd go with these four. If you looked at it this way, and down the line. And then my final comment was that even though I wouldn't go in this direction, I'm a big resume guy. I'm not an eyeball test guy. But if I did go eyeball test, if somebody, I had a number of people ask me, as I'm sure you got a zillion more, ask you, who do you just think are the four best teams in the country? So if my life's on the line, somebody's holding a gun to my head, I'm putting Georgia and Ohio State in the top four in terms of athletes on the field, NFL talent that can compete and win in a playoff. I didn't think they deserved it. They didn't earn it. But so my two questions would be, do you like the 8-team format? And what would be, under the current format, what is more your criteria for what you would like to see the playoff committee do?
Well, under the current format, it's dicey, isn't it? Because you're right. Do you go with, we want to put the four best teams in? Because the four best teams versus the four most deserving teams can be completely different. I'm with you. If this were truly about getting the four best teams, I think you would have Alabama. I think you would have Clemson. I think you would have Ohio State, and I think you would have Georgia. I don't think that Notre Dame at 12-0 is one of the four best teams. Now, are they one of the four most deserving teams? Yes, I would say Notre Dame is one of the most deserving teams. Oklahoma very well might be one of the four most deserving teams. So, and who knows what goes on in that room. Now, what we heard last year when Alabama got in, without playing in the SEC championship game, was it's about getting the four best teams. Well, clearly, in my opinion, in your opinion, that's not what they went with this year. I think if they had put Georgia in, I think there would have been a pushback like we've never seen. And I don't think that committee wanted to deal with that. But I'm with you. Having been in that Mercedes-Benz Stadium, watching that game, you can't convince me, based on what I saw Alabama do to everybody else this year, you can't convince me that Georgia isn't one of the four best teams in the country, but they didn't get in. As far as the expansion is concerned, Mark, this to me, too, is if it goes to 8 teams, it's the Power Fives, first of all, wanting to guarantee that they get a team in every year. The problem, though, again, it's most deserving versus best teams. Everybody says, well, you should be a conference champion, and the conference champion should get an automatic berth into the playoff. The problem there is, now if you do away with the championship game, I think it's actually easier, because then you go with the best record. The problem with the championship game and the champion that way, let's say you have a year where you have one of your teams that's undefeated, and one of your team may have three or four losses, like we saw with Northwestern this year. We've seen it in the SEC in the past. What if that team wins over the team that's undefeated? They would get the automatic berth, and we know they're not one of the 8 best teams in the country. You might not want to be one of the best 15 teams in the country. So I think the conference championship games have to go away. If you're going to give the Power Fives and then have 3 at large, the Power 5 conference champion, the best team will usually win the conference championship game, but not always. The best team would be the team with the best record. Well, what if there's a tie? What if you have 2 teams that are 8-1 or 9-0, or in the SEC's case where they play 8 games, 8-0? Well, you'd have to take the higher ranked team as the automatic berth and then hope that the other team got an at-large. But it's going to be dicey however you go. Again, I'm in the minority here in this part of the country. Most people here want to see it stay just the way it is, a 4-team playoff, keep the conference championship game. But I have no problem with opening it up for 8, even Central Florida. And listen, I'm tired of listening to their rhetoric, but I do admit what they've done has been impressive. And if you expanded it to 8, you could get them in. And then we could see what they could do. If they beat LSU without Mackenzie Milton, that's going to be another head turner. At some point, we'll have to acknowledge, their accomplishments. But if you go to 8, I know somebody will say, well, what about the 9th place team? Well, somewhere you got to cut it off. And in college football, as you know, unlike basketball or baseball, there's no thought process. If you had the number 1 ranked college basketball team playing the number 8 college basketball team, you'd probably say the 8th ranked team has as many chances to win as the 1st place team. Not that way in football. There's much more of a gap. You don't play as many games. In college baseball, you have series. You might have an incredible pitcher for the 25th ranked team that is capable of beating the top-ranked team because he's better than anybody the top-ranked team can throw out there on a given day. College football, it's different. But still, I think you can do 8 teams. In my opinion, you have to do the first-round games on campus. The 1, 2, and 3, 4 seeds host. The 5, 6, 7, and 8 seeds travel. Then you go into the semifinals. You could still use the bowl games and then have the college football championship game the way you have it now.
Hey, Gary, the reason I defend the 8 teams is that you can always argue that the 9th and 10th teams, but you're going by rankings if you're doing that. At least you have representation. So the Big Ten champion right now can complain and say, we won a conference, we should be in.
Sure.
Versus if you're second place in the Big Ten, well, all you have to do is say, yeah, we understand you're the number 9 team in the country, but you had the opportunity to win the Big Ten. Right now, obviously, that's not given to every conference because of the format.